Welcome and get ready for a front row seat on Icons with Ava Johanna, the live show that is raising the bar in the entertainment space worldwide. You're about to be right in the middle of heart-pounding conversations and real-time connection that ignite transformation within. Our global live show stars the industry's powerhouses, visionaries, and cultural icons. Together, we'll walk the path of legendary entrepreneurs, influential business moguls, celebrities, and iconic brand architects. Join the conversation, seize the opportunity to engage directly with icons of their industries, and immerse yourself in an unparalleled learning experience. Icons isn't just a show. It's an opportunity to step into the minds and hearts of industry leaders and run with their advice. So grab your popcorn because this is the space where icons are born. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Icons. Ooh, it is so good to be here. I am so excited for today's conversation. So excited to be here with y'all. I am coming off of 2 weeks of travel and I haven't been podcasting the entire time. So I feel very, very lucky to be back streaming live, sitting next to Angela Duncan, who you are going to learn all about and learn so much from today. But as a reminder, before we jump into the conversation, before I officially introduce you to Angela, you hear her story and she shares with you so much value on investing, real estate, and building wealth. I want to remind you that this is a space where you are invited to be a part of the conversation. If you are watching live with us on YouTube, make sure that you utilize the chat and ask questions because this is going to be a really dynamic conversation that, in my opinion, can change your entire life. And we want to make sure that you are getting the most out of it and that you are getting so much value. So if you are here with us live, share your aha moments, ask questions. It really is so rare that we have the opportunity to be able to pick the brains of and be in communication with people who are doing massive, massive things in their own industries. And real estate investing is something that I know so many people are really interested in, excited in about, but also a little bit intimidated by. And so I really wanted to have Angela on to demystify the world of building wealth, real estate, and investing so that you can get in ASAP and start building wealth, especially in the world today when there is economic uncertainty. There is nothing more valuable than knowing that you have a foundation of wealth to build upon. And so without further ado, I am so excited to invite Miss Angela Duncan onto the podcast. Angela, thank you so much for joining me on Icons.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation. Always like talking about money.
Yeah, it is a fun conversation. I noticed that it can be a very polarizing conversation from time to time, but it is so important that we have this chat together today because, so many conversations right now are very much fear-based around where is the economy going? Where is investing going? Will I have enough? What's going to happen at the end of the year during the election? And so for me, when we were having the conversation about you coming on, it's such a no-brainer because I want to ensure that as many individuals, but especially women, have the ability to build wealth on their own. And before we hit live, I shared with you that we have very similar stories of growing up and our childhood. So I'd love to start there because I also want people to know that it really doesn't matter where you started. If you know and have the tools and the dedication to making it happen, you can rise above any situation and become a wealthy woman. So why don't we start there?
Yeah. So childhood, I'm a survivor of childhood abuse and poverty. What poverty means for me in the US is Section 8 housing, welfare, living in other people's houses, motels, cars, things that some of the world doesn't get to see. So when you grow up not having money, you don't know anything different, right? But pay attention to the surroundings as a child and you ask questions, why does that kid get to go on vacation? Why does that girl get a car on her 16th birthday? All of these questions that my mom couldn't answer for me. But a lot of that comes down to she just didn't have the right financial education. She didn't know any better. And so this was the life that was provided based on her knowledge. And I've realized over many years of studying money and learning about the tool is that it's the one thing I believe we can change about our life is the education. So learning that you can go on this journey, and I've been studying money for so long that now I have the opportunity to give back and to teach others so that they can break that cycle and their kids don't live through what I had to live through as a child.
Yeah, it is really hard when you're a child and don't understand and the confusions there. And it's also out of your control. And, of course, I don't know if you're like me, but the moment that I could get a job, I got a job so that I could make my own money. I had to, right? Like I didn't have any other option but to do that. And I'm curious in those beginning years when you were still a teenager but had to get your job. And for me, I always say like I was running as fast as possible away from that situation once I realized what the situation was and once I saw the dichotomy between the life that I was living and the life that like my friends were living or the people that I went to school with were living. And I'm curious for you on this journey, and then we'll get into more of like the strategic and all of the investment pieces, but I know so much of it is emotional and energetic. And I'm curious for you in those beginning stages, were you responding in almost a reactive state to escape the circumstances that you had no control over as a child?
Yeah, very similar. As soon as I could sign my own lease and provide enough income to get my own apartment, got a roommate, I was out, I knew that I had to take control in order for things to be different. And very similar in the beginning, you're kind of running away from that poverty. Like, how do I get out of poverty as quickly as possible? What is it that I'm missing that other people seem to have? And how do I make more money? Well, in the beginning, I just thought, you work more. So I had multiple jobs, going to college, took 5 years to finish school, but it's because I was working 7 days a week. I had a job at 5 a.m., I had a job at nighttime, I had a job at weekends, just so that I could pay my bills and try and put a little bit of money away to, go towards this future. I wasn't thinking about, vacations or stuff as a young 20-year-old, right? I was
Mhm.
like, I need to make money, put money away, and hopefully my savings would, outlast what I needed to do. But then you kind of think about, okay, what else can I be doing better that I'm still missing at this point, right? Other than working hard, it's just not creating the life that I want. So we have to kind of adjust and learn to pivot to do something differently in order to change that current environment.
What were some of the biggest breakthroughs that you had earlier on when you were at a point of realizing, okay, there's things that other people know that I don't know, and there's other things that I can be doing to create more financial security for myself? What were the like first few things that really made a big impact?
Right. My first one was my first investment. I had gone to a bank and I had $100, which at the time seemed like a lot of money. And I talked to the bank lady and I said, I've got $100. I'm excited. I want to start my investing journey. And she handed me a pamphlet. It was a mutual fund. And she said, write a check, mail it off, and here's your investment. She probably didn't spend a lot of time with me. I mean, I only had $100. She wasn't going to make any commission, but I really felt like if I was in that position now, I would be different. But she gave me the pamphlet, I mailed it away, and I lost 20% that first year. And it's $20, which doesn't seem like a ton, but you're like, okay, what am I doing wrong? Like, I don't want to share this mistake with other people. I've obviously failed at investing. And you, in that moment, you get a choice. Do you do it again or do you stop? Right. So my choice was I've got to figure something out. And I think the curiosity from my childhood, and most kids, I think, are curious. You need to learn how to ask questions and to find the right people to ask questions, paying attention to the environment. Now, I was fortunate enough to work for a bank at that time. So I was able to find financial advisors that were in the business for a while and they looked like they had nice cars and took vacations and trips. And when you pay attention to your surroundings and you see what other people are doing and you get curious, you just start asking them questions. What I find is most people who are doing great in their field want to share. They want to
Mhm.
teach. That's why they're doing what they're doing, and that's why they're successful. So if you want to learn about money and investing, find someone who's doing it. don't be afraid to ask questions. I think we get scared to ask questions because we feel we might be stupid, or maybe it's a stupid question. We all started somewhere. I started with nothing, and I had to learn and find mentors and coaches to help teach me along the way. It's not like, the information is just downloaded into your brain as we start life. You really have to seek out that information and take action on it. And so learning from some of that early mistakes I made in investing, but just taking the time to ask people, what are you doing? Teach me. How is this investing thing working? What's this money thing? Like, what can you teach me that hopefully I can implement? And then later on in life, I'll be able to give back and teach somebody else.
Mm. It's such a easy yet intimidating thing to do when it's not necessarily your natural environment. I was just in a room with 100 other really successful entrepreneurs, real estate investors, content creators yesterday, and many of them were in their, late 40s, 50s, 60s, and have been in the game for a while. And I felt like the young buck coming in, where sometimes I'm like, I feel like I've been in it for a while when I like go onto social media. But in that room, I was like, wow, I'm like the young buck in here and I've got so much to learn. And there's a moment where it can be a little intimidating. And also, like you said, people who are successful, people who have been able to create something in their life and with the resources that they have, want to give back, for the most part, want to give back. And so if you can find the right environments and the right people and start asking questions, you really can unlock so much more. And I think that, going back to our similar childhood experiences, that was one of the things that I was really grateful for, was that in my environment, although my family didn't have a lot, I was surrounded by a lot of wealth. And so it showed me that there was alternate ways to living and that poverty wasn't my destiny. So I love this advice. I'm curious because when I was in high school, I think it was high school or middle school, we did a project and it was like build your own like fake stock portfolio. And I lost all of my money. And maybe it's because at the time I didn't care about school and I didn't pay attention to the advice or the rules or whatever. Or maybe it was just that they didn't really give us that much to work with and it was just more of a loose project. But if I'm being totally honest, that prevented me and made me so scared to actually invest money when I was in my early 20s. And I didn't start investing until I was 27, 28 years old. And I kick myself for it. I mean, I'm grateful because I got in right when everything dropped during COVID. So I got in at a good time. But at the same time, I'm like, I could have been doing this for a decade longer had I had the confidence to know what I was doing and not feel stupid with money. And I feel like, especially for women, we are kind of pushed to the side, both like in our subconscious programming, but then also in education. Like so many of the financial spaces I'm sure that you're in are very male dominant. And I'm curious for you as a woman in the space, what has it been like over the last 25 years of you really focusing on making strong investments and understanding the space and like really becoming one of the best of the best?
Yeah. So one thing I want to highlight from your story, you said the event you went to recently. I love that you gave yourself permission to go to an event where you are not perhaps the experts, right? I don't want to be the most knowledgeable in the room. I want to give myself permission to learn. And the way that I learn is to enter into rooms like that where people know a lot more than me. Like I am the uneducated person on that topic in the room. And that's the position I want to be in because it's extremely scary, but it's the way that we grow. So you're right. In the financial world, it's a male dominated industry. It still is today. And I like to use that to my advantage because I do think that men are naturally born to help women. It's just part of their genetic makeup and they want to protect the woman. They want to educate the woman and teach them. So I kind of use that to my advantage. If I'm in a room, and I did this recently, I was at an insurance event and I was in a group and there were 2 women out of 10 in my group, right? So I just took the lead and I just asked, like, what can you teach me Pretend that I'm your client, pretend that I'm your student. What would you want to tell me? And how should I learn? And they just open up because when you come to them with, like a handout, right? They want to help you. And I kind of use that for my advantage in this world. There's so many men that are just dominating the field, and that's great. There's a lot of women too, but not nearly as many. And when you come to them and just ask, like, how do you help your clients? They do want to show you. And perhaps that's a little bit of the male ego that's still in there, but that's okay. That's how they're made. For me, that's how God created them. So how do I use that to help educate myself so I can inspire other people? It's just another tool that just flows through so that we can be the best version of ourselves, so that we can help other people. And I've kind of just taken on that teacher role. And it's just so much more fun when you can help other people. But it starts with you first. You have to become educated. You have to take the action. You have to have the experience so that you can take those results and show other people and hopefully change their lives. Like that's my whole goal, is if I can just help someone else get out of this cycle, which I truly believe we can, then that's just amazing to be part of.
I love that. What do you feel like? Because you shared that your first investment was $100. Do you feel like if you have $100, like go invest it? What would you say is like not necessarily the minimum bar to entry, because I know that you can start investing with any amount of money, but what would you say is a good place for somebody to start? I see in the chat too, like if someone feels that they're behind or don't feel like they have enough to spare when it comes to investing, what would you say is a good place to start?
Yeah, I think people don't want to look in the mirror sometimes and have a real conversation with themselves. Look at what you're spending money on today. Most times it's a debt problem, not necessarily an income problem. And the easiest thing for you to tackle first is what I'm spending money on. What can I cut out that I don't need right now? Like take it down to the bare minimum. We need shelter, we need food, we need water, right? There's so much in our life that we add to the table that we don't need today. So if you're struggling with that, cut out everything possible, right? Figure out a way to bring down those expenses first. And we live in the US where there's so much opportunity for additional income, and it can be little things. I mean, I've told people about apps, right? If you've got tools in your garage that are sitting there, you can rent them out. If you have a garage you're not using, you can rent it out. Here in Miami, there's so many condos that if you have a house with a backyard, you can rent that out to people who own dogs that just want to let them run around and play, right?
Yeah.
So I think what you don't realize is that there are opportunities. I don't like to cook. So if I'm gonna, create a basket for a client, I'm gonna hire somebody else out. And that might seem super simple, like, hey, I can put cookies together, but it's not for me. That's your talent, not my talent. So what are your talents? How can we monetize that to help you get to your financial goals, and really putting in the effort and the time and cutting out the things that you don't need, like TV, for example. When you think about the average American and how much time they spend on Hulu, Netflix, or, watching days of, sporting events. Now, I'm not saying to cut out what makes you happy, but if you can cut it back a little bit to help create more time for more income, that will help you reach your financial goals so much quicker.
These are all such good tips. And I personally this year have been on a big pullback in my spending and even in my investing in my business, where I'm like, where have I been overly investing that has been powerful for a period of time, but doesn't need to be the like normal every
Mhm.
single month, whether it's specific contractors or, hiring different contracts for people for a period of time. I really have been focusing on like running a leaner ship, and it feels so good
Mhm.
because there's so much more spaciousness and less pressure. And it's allowed for me, even just like as a business owner, to really look at the decisions I'm making from this very calm and grounded state versus like needing to have the answers right away and needing to make a decision really quickly. And I think whether you own a business or not, whenever we are, swimming in bills every single
Mhm.
month, there's always going to be that underlying pressure. And that's always going to feel like you don't have enough. And I'm curious, when I started really like getting my money shit together in a more organized way, Something that was helpful for me was looking at the percentage of money coming in on average and how much of that percentage was necessary for the bills that I have, and then playing with the excess percentage of like, okay, I can save this, I can invest this, and creating a system for myself where it was like 10% of um every month is going into an investment fund. Do you recommend that as just a really easy way for people so that it's a clean percentage and not necessarily feeling stuck to like, okay, I have to invest $1,000 every month?
Yeah, starting small is amazing. The credit card debt is my first thing, though. With the interest rates where they're at, if you have credit card debt, that needs to be your number one priority. Because if you put money in a savings account, right now we're at like 4.5%. But if you're paying 30% on your credit card, you're never going to get ahead. And that's just reality. I mean, it's basic math. I'm taking the emotion out of it, right? 4.5% versus 30 is a huge difference. So the credit card is the most important thing to get out of debt first. I know there's other people that teach you to get out of debt completely. I think there's still good debt, but if you know how to control it, that's great. Breaking
Mhm.
it down as far as a percentage after you're out of debt, your retirement should be your number one priority, and looking at how much can you put away, because when you put it in your retirement fund, it's meant to sit there until you retire. So you can't put something there that you're going to need in a few years, right? So thinking about like, what am I going to need in the next 5, 10 years? Is it a new car? Is it a house? And starting to just put a little bit away is a great idea. I'm not necessarily a percentage like, 50% house, 25% this, 25% that. It's going to be based on your individual needs and what your goals are. But looking at your whole, financial house is like a piece of like a whole pie, right? And how much of that must go to your housing, your gas, your water, your food? What do you have left over? And now we're going to take a small piece if you haven't started investing and start investing with that until you're comfortable. And then we continue to increase it, because when you see it grow, you're like, celebrate, right? You've got to celebrate your wins. And I celebrate my not wins either, because it's a lesson that I've learned. But find a mentor or a coach or just an accountability partner that you can share with, because we're not meant to do this alone. We're not meant to live life alone. So it's always having that second person that really helps you stay on track and look at things from outside of your own view as well, and celebrating with you. I think that's just so much fun to have someone there to just be your big cheerleader when you do accomplish some of those goals that you've been working on.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think that it's also especially important because there's so much information out there. Like when I first started getting into investing, I mean, I could literally sit at my desk and not move for 3 years and not get through all of the information available online. And so it can be confusing because some of it's conflicting. A lot of people have different schools of or follow different schools of thought around investing. What would you say outside of seeking support through coaching, mentorship, or an accountability partner is another really good way for somebody to start to set themselves up specifically for real estate investing? Because I know a lot of people in my audience are at that age where they're like, I want to buy a house and I want to start investing. I attract a lot of people that are very much into the idea of building a beautiful home. And so I'm curious, like, where the best place to start is for somebody with that first investment. And do you, at this point in time, recommend focusing on investing in a single family home, or like we were talking about, something that's more similar to a fund where it's not as big of an investment?
Yeah. So if you haven't bought a home before, I think this is the first time in maybe ever for me that I recommend really looking at your numbers. And I go back to the number piece of it because it's not emotional. Write out what would it cost to rent, what you're looking for to live in right now. And then looking at what does it cost to buy. And if it makes sense for you to rent right now, then it's okay. Rent. It gives you a lot of flexibility, and now you can take that extra money that you may have put into a home and start investing. When it comes to real estate, there's so many lanes, right? You can buy a house and become a landlord. I've done that. You can go into a real estate syndication and buy an apartment complex. I've done that. Tax lien investing is probably one of the easier things to get into with the least amount of money. I've also done that. I do teach that. But if you're too busy in your life to really get the education you need to invest wisely, then look for other people who are already doing it and become partners with them, whether it's investing in a fund or going into a project together. It allows you to start smaller, learn from them. Now, vet them, make sure they've actually done what you're going into before, because I've made that mistake too. But pick one lane in the real estate aspect and find a mentor, a partner that you can go in with or learn from them, and start smaller until you can really build up that knowledge. Because I'd rather you start smaller and take action and start investing than become the expert and then invest, because you miss all of that time. And time is such a huge, valuable asset to us when we're thinking about investing very long term, right? So find something and pick a lane. And I keep saying that, but I've learned a lot, right? I've made a lot of mistakes in investing. I've lost 6 figures on a project before. But that was a huge learning lesson for me. And if I could go back and do it differently, it's because I didn't start smaller. So start smaller first with what you can comfortably lose, but know that you've done enough education in your own self and believe in yourself and have the confidence in yourself that that investment is going to do good, because you've spent the time to get to know that investment or your partner or whomever you're working with.
I've always been curious around, finding a partner or somebody who's already doing it. What advice do you have for finding that person? Because I've always heard about, finding people that are already doing it, being able to give them some money, but I'm like, where do we find these people? And so I'm curious, do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. Go to events, real estate invest, and real estate events. There's real estate meetups. If you have any real estate attorneys in your world, ask them, because you're going to need a real estate attorney when you're going into any type of partnership, especially one that's just for you. And just ask other people, like, who do you know? And we like to give good news. We also like to give bad news. But if you start asking people around you that either are like business owners or, have heard someone talk about real estate, I can Google and find, I'm in Miami, so it's a very large city, and maybe not everybody has this opportunity, but I can Google and find real estate meetups almost every single night. So when you pick kind of the lane that you want to focus on, or that sounds interesting for you to learn, then find some local meetup groups, or go to a conference, go to a webinar. Be careful with the webinars, because if they're free, they're going to sell you something. So just go into it knowing that, but take away what you can from each of those, and you're going to find someone and ask them questions, because this potentially could be like a marriage, right? You want to make sure that you can hang out with this person for a long term. You want to make sure that their ideals are similar to you. What is their belief system? Ask them questions about, like, if this goes south, what is your expertise in it? How do you approach investing? What's important to you? And I'm a conservative investor, so I look for partners who are conservative, meaning we're not swinging for the fences. We're not going big on investments and hoping for a big payout. I want slow and steady cash flow and returns. That's important to me. So that's the type of a partner that I'm looking for. And making sure that you really ask a lot of questions up front, because you can get yourself in trouble when you don't really know, obviously, what partner and who you're investing in.
You've mentioned a couple times different mistakes you've made, or like these red flags, so to speak, of partnership. Can you share some more red flags that would be helpful for people to look out for as it relates to investing?
Yeah, so I go to a lot of Grant Cardone events, and I think he's extremely knowledgeable. He obviously went from zero to a billionaire through real estate. But what happens at some of these conferences is that you can get so excited and you just want to go out and take action. And, obviously that's the purpose of a lot of these. And then you talk to other people and they want to get in and let's go find an apartment complex together. Let's underwrite the deal, which means you're looking at all the financials, but you don't know what you don't know. And if you go in with someone who's not more experienced than you and has a great track record, then you guys are all going to make the same mistake at the same time, because you don't know any different. So that was one investment I went into. We were going to buy this apartment complex, and I learned a very valuable lesson, because while I have a lot of background in real estate, not in this lane. And I didn't know how to go deeper and uncover some more financial information. I just took it at the surface level, and ended up that the true numbers of this specific investment was not correct. So when we're going into it expecting a higher number or higher rents, higher valuations, and it's not accurate information, but I didn't know how to dive deeper into that. then we had to walk away from that deal. And so you lose money on inspections and attorneys and all the cost up front because you walk away from that deal. And again, I could have just said, all right, never doing that again. But I looked at myself and said, what could I have done differently? What didn't I know? And what do I need to do going forward? Or who do I need to know going forward? Found a better partner. Next one, so much better because their expertise helped teach me what I missed on that first one. But that first one for all of us was a six-figure loss because we went into it excited and wanting to do things, but we weren't educated to be able to go into it. And that's where the loss came from.
You know, I've had a couple losses. And I think something that I want to highlight is that while you've been doing this for a while, it sounds like a lot of the mistakes that you made were in a point where you could afford to make these mistakes. And I think that the longer that people put off investing and getting into this space, the more pressure you're going to feel to not fuck it up, so to speak, because you don't have as long of a runway versus like when you're young, I lost like $25,000 in a crypto investment, and boy did I learn a lot from that. And at the same time, even though it like stung, it never to me was like, oh my God, this is the end of the world, because I lost it when I was, 29 years old. I lost it when I was making really good money. I lost it with a lot of energy, knowing that like I got a long runway in front of me. And so I think that it's also important for anybody that maybe is intimidated to start getting into it to know, like, if you're young, go for it, go do it, because now is the time to make the mistakes where you have the energy, you have your health, you have the ability to learn and pivot and get into new markets. And it doesn't feel as pressurized because you're, peaking 10 years down the road at retirement.
Yeah. Well, that most recent loss was in my 40s. So it's never too late to make mistakes. But like you said, that 25,000 you lost was most likely not your entire life savings. So we would never recommend you do that. And why I say start smaller. But know that if you can make mistakes, yes, younger is great. But if it's later in life, it's still okay because you're learning and you're still taking action and working on your financial goals. For me, working on my financial goals will never stop, nor should it be for anybody else. It just might change over your lifetime, and that's fine, but you can always learn new lessons and you can always find new avenues to invest in. Find what you are, comfortable with and really stay in that lane for as long as you can that it's profitable and making money for you before you add on other avenues, because I want to be more of an expert in my field before I start adding other things. I'm not an investor in crypto. I think I lost $1,000. I don't understand it, nor am I passionate, nor do I want to learn about it. Some people make a lot of money from that, and that's great, and that's their avenue. But for me, it's real estate. So pick your lane and just become a student and really learn that craft of what you're investing in.
Mm. Do you think that if people get into too many different types of investments, that it ends up diluting their ability to really master any of them?
Yeah, I think over diversification can be a killer for your portfolio. I do have money in the stock market, but I hired a financial advisor who watches it and pays attention, knows my goals, knows what kind of investor I am, and we meet quarterly to make sure that that's still the case for me. But when it comes to the real estate investing, I still have partners. I still learn. I still go to conferences. Those are my two diversifications. Now, once you get to a certain state and you want to have some fun with your portfolio, great, have fun. If you love wine and you want to collect wine and you're a student of it, that's great. If it's cars, that's great. Mine is shoes, which really is not an investment, but it's a budget item for me. You know, it's like you got to allow yourself to have some fun with it. I don't want to be super boring, but you have goals and you've got to be very diligent and stay on track and focused but give yourself permission to have a little fun too.
hmm What would you say? Because you mentioned earlier that, if you are looking right now at real estate, this is the first time that you would say, like, really look at the numbers and like take a step back, and maybe it's better to rent right now. With the shift in the market over the last year and interest rates rising, prices stabilizing, the election at the end of the year, would you say that if the numbers still look good, and maybe we can even dive into like what that would look like, but because I know it is also very, you know, dependent on the person and their entire bank account and their entire financial outlook. But would you say that now is actually a time, like, are you investing in real estate right now, or are you kind of waiting for to see what happens over the next couple months?
Yeah, so for us in the commercial real estate space, this past year and a half now has been extremely challenging. I mean, there have been entire apartment complexes taken back by a bank because what people don't know sometimes in the commercial world, when we're buying apartment complex, for example, we do an adjustable rate, so it's not fixed. So we went from 3% to 7%,
Mm-hmm.
doubled the cost for a lot of people, and rents are not rising that quickly. So real estate's very regional. You got to look at where you're at. I'm in Miami and we are still building. We still have a population growth from Canada, from South America, from Europe, still coming to Miami. We don't have enough apartment complexes going out. So it's very regional. But in every single market, there's always deals to be made. So if you're looking to buy your first house to live in, and yes, interest rates are higher, it just means you need to have a little bit more cushions, have some more money in your savings account so that you can afford to buy the house and hopefully refinance. We went into this year expecting 5, 6 rate cuts. And here we are in May with none, with the possibility of none through the rest of the year because inflation is still so high. So those are things we can't control, but what we can control is reviewing the numbers. Does it make sense for you and your situation? If you want to own a home and that's a goal of yours, still do it. Make sure that you're getting into the right home. You're not buying too much home. Hopefully interest rates go down and you can refinance, but if it doesn't, that's why it makes so much sense for you to figure out, can you afford this house right now? Not hoping rates go down later, but right now, what does that situation look like for you? Now, if you want to be a real estate investor, still a great time. There are I go back to the apartment complexes. You can buy apartment complexes right now for less than what it would cost to build it brand new. That to me says it's still a buyer's market. If you're looking at single family homes, it's going to be regional. You want to look for cash flow, fix that rate. Don't go adjustable. I know some mortgage lenders are telling me right now, still go adjustable. I don't like uncertainty. Goes back to, I know what kind of investor I am. Do you know what kind of investor you are? And understanding that fixed rate makes for certain. For me, I know exactly what my payments are going to be. No control over insurance. That's a big thing in Florida. So knowing that I'm budgeting for that insurance to perhaps double in the next year, that's what we're seeing in this past year in Florida. But you gotta really pay attention to all those economic things. I think once we get past the election and the market is certain now, we know what president is going to be here. Whatever you're voting, doesn't matter. It's just the certainty piece of it that's important. Interest rates, hopefully we'll see go down a little bit by the end of the year, but don't count on it. Make your investment based on the environment that you're in right now.
Such good advice. Yeah, I did not realize. So I have a fixed rate with my house, but I didn't realize that property taxes could change. And so property taxes changed last year because the value of my house went up, and it was an extra like $750 added to my mortgage. And I was like, where is this coming from? So it's, there's so many things that, like you were saying, like you don't know until you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And so to have somebody to kind of walk hand in hand with you on this is so valuable. And to have a real estate agent that you trust, a lender that you trust, a mentor, if this is something that you're serious about. I think because money holds such an emotional charge for every single person on this planet in one way or another, whether you've healed it or not, there's still a charge there. um, it's good to have people around you that create that sense of safety and security. So I love what you're doing. I love how you uplift women and how you uplift just the collective overall and demystify so many of the complexities of real estate investing. The last piece that I wanted to ask you about, because this is more of a personal question, personal as in selfish question for myself. I was stalking you on Instagram, and I saw one of your posts around savings accounts and having set aside money in a savings account. Curious what your thoughts are, because I have, money that's been sitting in my savings account, and it really is like my emergency house fund, where if anything happens with the house, I can pull into that. But I've been with the house for 2 years and nothing has happened. And I'm like, oh, this money is just losing its value because of inflation. So I'm
Yes.
curious, like your advice on that, or what you would say to somebody who maybe is like kind of like hoarding their money in a savings account and doesn't necessarily use it in a way that's actually allowing for it to grow.
Yeah, so I'm in line with some of the other money experts too. I do believe in having a savings account. If you have equity in your home, that could be used as a savings account, which means you can put your real savings to work. So if you're saving more than 3% or 3 months of your expenses, then you have what I call lazy money. Lazy money is sitting there doing absolutely nothing for you. You've worked extremely hard to put that money in a savings account. And sometimes you just don't know what else you could be doing with it. With our fund, we have short-term opportunities where you can put your money to work, but it still be somewhat liquid, meaning you're holding up 90 days, right? That you put with us, our contracts are 90 days, meaning it's not liquid for 90 days, but maybe you don't need the money right now. Maybe you think you're going to buy a new car in a couple of years and you just want to put that money to work for you. There's so many opportunities to do that. But if you don't know about them, then you're going to sit in that savings account and you're right, you're losing money because inflation is eating away at that savings, making it worth a lot less. And the banks, sure, they pay you a little bit of interest rate, but their job is to make money. It is not their job to make you money, and you have to understand that role. So putting aside 3 months is great, but anything above that, you really should be putting to work. And depending on what your goals are, whether it's short term, midterm, long term, then you're going to decide what vehicle to put that money to work for you. But ask questions. Like you said, you went on Instagram, we can learn so much. And yes, there's going to be different schools of thought, but which school of thought works for you? And determining, reaching out to that person and saying, hey, give me more education on what it is that you're teaching, and then you decide if it's right for you. But don't let lazy money sit there because it's not going to help you reach your financial goals, and it's definitely not going to help you build real wealth either.
I feel like it's burning a hole in my pocket. I'm like, I need this money to work for me.
Yes,
I know
yes.
too much now. Um, so you mentioned short-term, mid, and then long-term goals. And I know that you have a really awesome assessment about your investment style, investment type on your website. Can you share a little bit more about that? Because I know it's a free gift that you're going to be giving everybody that we can send over to them and put in the show notes. But I would love for people to just also know the value of the assessment.
Yeah, I think we love learning about ourselves. So we put together a quiz or a GPS, as we call it. There's two ways you can access it. If you go to my Instagram, Empower Her Money, and you just message me quiz, we'll send you the link and you can figure out what kind of investor are you, which will help you decide which investment vehicles to start in, right? Or to continue your journey. Or if you go to my website, morewithangela.com, there's a button there. It's called the GPS. Very similar. It's just letting you enter information so that we can help teach you what might be the best investment opportunity for yourself. Because there's so many different vehicles, and I don't want you to be confused and not take action. I want you to have some education so you can take action, but the right action for you individually.
Beautiful. Angela, it has been so much fun to have this conversation. I hope that everybody that's here live with us has gotten a ton of value out of the information that you've shared. I know that I have, and I know that I feel like I've got some marching orders for myself, and I'm really excited to connect with you offline about everything that you're doing. So, for anybody that does want to connect with you offline outside of the quiz, what's the best way for people to get in touch?
Yeah, Empower Her Money is my brand. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, and you can go to my website, morewithangela.com, and book a call directly with me. And let me just teach you, ask questions. I'm not afraid to answer any questions that you have.
Amazing. And you also have an incredible podcast. So if you want more, Angela, definitely go listen to the podcast as well. I see in the chat this was amazing. So thank you all for being here live with us. And we'll make sure to link everything in the show notes or in the YouTube caption section. I still don't know, YouTube description, I guess that's what it would be called.
Thank goodness
But
we have a team to help with that, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So Angela, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for being here with us live. This has been so much fun, and we will see